So I finished Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey, which is a science fiction like novella. I think it's only like 170 pages, and it literally inspired this entire reading vlog. Like, I loved it so much. Sarah Gailey is a non-binary author. I didn't even know that going in. I just already had this book on my radar and saw that my library had it because it was like really expensive on Amazon, and I fell in love with this book. Like, I want to already say that it is the best book I read in 2021, possibly my favorite book of all time. Like, I literally, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley had been my favorite book of all time since my junior year of high school. And then last year I read Transcendent Kingdom by Yaw Jesse and was like, I have a new favorite. And I've already read this and I want this to be my new favorite. Like, I don't know that it beats Transcendent Kingdom. I would have to reread both of them like pretty close together, I think, but like they're both up there together. Like, this book is so important. The like way that it deals with the themes. What I really love about it is it is trying to make this commentary on like fascism and totalitarianism and the military industrial complex, but it does it through the, hi, you can't jump up there, you make the camera shake. It does it through like this really in-depth character work of Esther and Cy and Amity, and no jumps. Nope. You gotta be on camera. Now it just looks like I have a phantom cat. Phantom cat. And so you have Esther, who basically runs away from home because she's a lesbian, and that's like not okay. And hi in her society. And like literally the dedication of this book is to everyone who thought they'd never live this long. Those are my cupcakes. I gotta go get them out of the oven. Hey Google, stop. All right, we're back. It's a lot of cupcake. Anyways, back to the book. Oh, it was just so good. And like the hopeful theme of this book was what I think really stood out to me, is that I read a lot of science fiction literature and like literature that like literary fiction that has a lot about social commentary in it. And I don't mind the darkness. Like, I think that's really useful and a useful literary tool, but having a book like this that dealt with these themes but did it in such a hopeful and inspiring way that just like filled my heart with so much warmth, that was what really made this book stand out to me and really just made me fall in love with the characters of Esther and Cy. Like, I literally had to dress up as Cy because I love them and that character so much. But like Esther's like internal anxiety and like we're in Esther's head for most of the book, and her sort of coming to terms with her own queerness and what that means and how she can participate in society and make society a better place, like just really resonated with me so strongly. I absolutely loved it. And like literally the book ends with, I don't really think it's a spoiler, but if you don't want anything to know about the book, which I do recommend, like probably going in blind. I think just knowing, I went in just knowing generically that it was set in like a post-apocalyptic dystopian-esque setting with the librarians who are like that's literally all I knew, was there were librarians. But one of the last lines in the book is, keep fighting. It will be hard and it will be awful and it will be worth it. Don't give up, even when it feels like dying. Don't give up. This is only the beginning. And like, I literally was just so emotional after I finished this. I had just read another book that like made me sob, and I think if I hadn't have already just sobbed from a book, I would have like ended up crying really hard. And then also, like, in the acknowledgements, there's this whole, like, the whole last page of the acknowledgements, which you have to read if you read this book, is just about Sarah Gailey says, I owe this book and my life to the queer community. This is for you. This is for all of you. There's a place for you in the future, and it's better than you can possibly imagine. Please be there to meet it. We need you on our side. And I was just, like, literally sobbing. I was such an emotional mess. Like, I love this book so much. I think more people should read it. And I just think it's beautiful. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And so it inspired this whole, like, non-binary authors reading vlog, because I think it's really important to sort of focus on non-binary authors and really bring a focus to that in the booktube community, because I think the booktube community really kind of, we love our women authors, but a lot of times non-binary authors are kind of left out unless it's like, you know, the novel of the zeitgeist like Cemetery Boys was. And I'm really grateful that Cemetery Boys did get all the attention that it did, but there are so many other great non-binary and trans authors out there that I really wanted to focus and make a focus of reading their books and just really giving them all the love. And, like, it's something that I want to do, is to read a lot more non-binary authors for, like, personal reasons. So I thought I would bring you along with me and sort of vlog my experience and sort of my thoughts. And I've already found a new, like, all-time favorite book, so let's read some more. So now I am like halfway through the audiobook for An Unkindness of Ghosts by River Solomon, and I am like literally kicking myself for waiting this long to read this book. It is so freaking good. River Solomon, they are brilliant. I love them. I have their other book, The Deep, which was very popular. I think it came out in 2019, and I never got around to reading it. And so I'm excited to read that as well. But An Unkindness of Ghosts is, if you have Audible, it is like included in your Audible membership, so you don't even have to use a credit for it. Go download it right now, add it to your library, listen to it. I love it. I love the idea of multi-generational ships, and a lot of times I always think they're kind of like, there's so much you can do with a multi-generational ship. Like, it's such a great sci-fi premise that is so often underutilized. If you've seen the Ascension miniseries, I think it was on Netflix, maybe it was on Amazon Prime for a while. I loved it. I've watched it at least twice. It's sort of a lot of the same multi-generational ship that was left pre-civil rights movement, but it was not that great. But because I love that so much, I am loving An Unkindness of Ghosts, which is taking that multi-generational ship that still has a lot of remnants of essentially pre-Civil War, US Civil War dynamics with the deck system. So all of the lower decks are the worker classes of people who are primarily people of color who work in the fields that are on the ship. They have like a tiny sun that powers the ship and does a lot of stuff for them. And there's like all of these linguistic and cultural differences, and basically all of the people on the lower decks are implied to be intersex people and are ostracized for that factor. Our main character that we're following, Aster, is implied to be intersex. The other main character we're following, Theo, is implied to be non-binary, and so there's this really great queer representation that I have been loving. Obviously, this is my sort of non-binary science fiction fantasy reading vlog, so I am really loving the idea of the queerness of these characters is just woven into the world and woven into their story. And I think that was one of the things that when I feel like when I'm actually reading these books by non-binary authors compared to cis authors, is like if you compare An Unkindness of Ghosts, where pretty much all the characters are implied to be intersex, and what's it called? The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, where the whole book in The Left Hand of Darkness is sort of understanding what that gender means for the characters, whereas in an Unkindness of Ghosts, we're just like dealing with it, and like that's what's happening, and that's not a defining feature of the character, just like that's not the only defining feature of Aster, just like her neurodivergence isn't her only feature either. So I've really been loving that. Can't wait to see where this story goes. Like, I'm kind of bummed it's a standalone. I love a good standalone sci-fi novel, but this is one where I'm like, I could literally just be in this world forever, like have 3 or 4 books in it. But I think we're really starting to get to like where our mystery's being solved, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Like, the plot is also just so good. So I will check back in later as I finish the rest of the audiobook. So I finished An Unkindness of Ghosts by River Solomon, and it is so good. It was so good. Like 5 stars, definitely. I will, like, River Solomon has a new book coming out this year. Definitely gonna read it. I have The Deep. I'm about to read that because they are now one of my favorite authors. Like, just, I loved what they did with An Unkindness of Ghosts, and like sort of the bittersweet end of the book, and I'm still just like, it was so good. I just loved the way that they built the world, and like it was a science fiction book where I understood the decisions that the characters made throughout the book, and there were like real life consequences for them that made sense in world, and just the consistency of the world building was so good, and it was just so spectacularly well written, and like we just get at the end we get a little bit into Giselle's character, which then like really helped with the end of the book be that much more impactful, and I just thought it was so cleverly done. I'm just I love the book. I like want to reread it already. It was so good. So I really enjoyed that, and definitely is putting River Solomon on my like top authors list of people that I'm going to get all of their books as soon as they come out, or as soon as I can, and also want to read their backlist. So looking forward to doing that. So far this vlog this like reading challenge has been going well. So I just finished Mooncakes by Wendy and Suzanne Walker, and this graphic novel is so good. I saw it really hyped up like right when I got super into BookTube in like late 2019, and for great reasons. Like, this is so good. When I read a graphic novel, like, this is the type of thing that I'm looking for. It is just adorable, like so heartwarming. I think the way I've heard this described is how a lot of people have been describing the TJ Klune book, The House in the Cerulean Sea, kind of the same like emotional feels, I think. But this is so cute. We're following our main character, Nova, who is a hearing impaired witch, and Tam, who is a non-binary werewolf, and they fall in love, and it's so cute, and the art style is just like absolutely beautiful. Where's my favorite? Like, genuinely, it is so gay and cute, and I love it so much. I don't think either the writer or the illustrator identify as non-binary, but I believe the writer does have a disability similar to that of Nova, so it is still an own voices work, and it's just so cute. I love it so much. 5 stars, like hands down. It's so cute. I absolutely love it. Everyone should go read it. Go get it from your library. It is so beautiful. Like it's so interesting, and like there's a it's like it has action-packed moments, but it has really strong character moments, and I just loved it so much. It was so good. Okay, I just wanted to hop on real fast and talk about the Black Tides of Heaven. So this is a book by a non-binary author who I believe lives in Singapore. And so for this book, we are basically following our 2 main characters, Mokoya and Akiha, who are twins, and basically through a deal that their mother, the Empress, made, they have to go and live at the like monastery for their lives. And in this culture, we basically have the idea that you choose your own gender when you decide that for yourself. So in the book, we have 3-year-olds who've already decided that they're girls, and then you go through an actual like medical transition process to like change your body into that gender. So you're kind of in a, I guess you would call it an intersex or non-sexed state. I don't know, the book doesn't go into a lot of detail about it. And then after you make that decision, you go through a process that actually changes your body. And for the like first half of the book, both Mokoya and Akiha have like decided to remain in that non-binary state. They had like made a pact with each other as children. They're gonna stay that way forever. That doesn't end up happening, and we end up having Mokoya becomes a woman and Akiha becomes a man. And there's like a lot of talking about how they both came to that decision, and as they've been twins living their whole lives together, like that is also at their like physical separation where they go in different ways in their life. And so it's like this really big transition point. I guess that's a spoiler. I don't know. We also have a magic system in this world where Mokoya and Akiha are like attuned to it. It's called the Slack. It's not super well developed, and like that is getting at my main problem with this book, is that it is a 200-page novella, and I wish it had been a 500-page fantasy novel. Like I wanted that world building. We have characters that are referenced in the back like third of the novel that are mentioned that our main characters knew them previously, but we never like saw scenes with them before. And there's there's 2 romances that just kind of happen, and it's very like, oh, we met, we love each other, moving on, just because there wasn't time to develop that fully in the book. And so I just wanted so much more from it. But I loved the ideas, and I thought they were so interesting. And there's this whole other like plot about totalitarianism and the overreach of government and rebellions and like overthrowing harsh regimes. And I was like, I don't care about that, because I wanted more character. Like the whole first half of the book is very, very character driven, with like all the plot stuff just kind of happening overhead, and then the back half is like super plot heavy. And I was like, I didn't feel like I got satisfied enough with the characters to feel like I understood their motivations moving forward. And so I just wasn't emotionally invested in it. There are a couple other books, I believe, in this series that I'm debating if I want to read them. Like they're only 200 pages, so it wouldn't be that difficult to just pick them up and read them really quickly and see if they sort of deal with my problems. But if they're just moving forward in the story, like that's not really what I want. So if you've read these, please let me know in the comments. I would really appreciate hearing someone else's opinions about these. But definitely if you're looking for something a little bit different maybe than what you normally read, if you're a really big fantasy reader, I would recommend reading this. Sometimes I think it depended upon tropes to just kind of assume things about the story, and I didn't really like that. But overall, I think I gave it 3.5 stars, because I really did appreciate the gender commentary. Although I hated that they both transitioned to being binary genders. I wish one of the characters had stayed in a like non-binary or gender fluid, or you know, completely off the binary scale, because I felt like it did kind of reinforce the idea that gender is a like gray to white spectrum, like you're either male or you're female. and oh, we're adding a state in between, but it's kind of still like on this line when that's like not how gender is at all. And so I didn't really like that. That wasn't really what I wanted in this story. But even though that's not what I personally wanted, I am glad that stories like this exist. So I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. So I finished The Deep by River Solomon, and I really wish I had read this before I read An Unkindness of Ghosts, because I think I would have liked it more, because An Unkindness of Ghosts was just one of the best science fiction stories I've ever read. It took a theme, like a trope that I really love, and did it like excellently. And I love mermaids. I love mermaid stories, but something about this just didn't click for me. And I've kind of seen that across reviews as well. I don't know if it's because this was originally a piece of music, what that was then a rap song, that was then a book, and there was just, maybe River Solomon needed a little more, it wasn't exactly their story. And for some reason it just didn't click with me. I did find it very, I feel like they were trying to kind of flex their muscles and sort of try something a little new. And I don't know, I think it was mostly a pacing problem, where because we're trying to tell this story about the history of the Wanru and Yetu's story as well, but Yetu's story is so tied up in the past, and I thought the themes were really strong and I really liked the world building. I just didn't feel like it all clicked necessarily all together. But it was one of the most inventive things I've ever read, and I love River Solomon. The back half of it was really good. The front half just, I couldn't really get through. I really struggled. It's only 150 pages, but it was kind of dense almost. So, if you really like River Solomon or you really like mermaid stories, I would definitely recommend trying it. But maybe try it on audio. I really liked the audio for An Unkindness of Ghosts a lot, and I didn't enjoy reading this as much. So I haven't done the audio of this, so I can't recommend it specifically, but that's sort of my gut feel. So this was not my favorite of River Solomon's work, like, because An Unkindness of Ghosts was just so good. And I'm really excited their third book is coming out later this year, which I'm going to read, and I'm so excited for. So I think that will really help me figure out where I stand on, like, is River Solomon like an all-time fave author or just someone that I'm very interested in what they're doing. So, but I did really enjoy this. And I guess this is the last book I read for the non-binary reading vlog, because this one took me a while to get through, honestly, whereas most of the others I was like, give me more, I love it. Yeah, I really enjoyed doing this, sort of focusing on a specific type of book with certain representation and certain authors, and I really enjoyed that. I found some new favorites in Upright Women Wanted and An Unkindness of Ghosts and Mooncakes. All amazing. Love them all. The rest of them were also good, so I definitely want to keep reading more non-binary authors this year, and that's something that's really important to me. And so if you have any favorites that didn't make this reading vlog, please leave them down in the comments. I absolutely want to read them. Please let me know. I feel like a lot of non-binary authors get kind of like left behind on BookTube, or they kind of are like mentioned for a couple months and then gone, and they're not really like these long-staying books like Surrogate Mass. So definitely leave me your favorites in the comments. If you haven't read any of these, I recommend all of them. They were all good, and like, they were all above 3 stars for me. I think this was the lowest. This one and the Black Tides of Heaven were the only ones that didn't really weren't 5 stars for me. So like, I feel like that's saying something. And these were still very interesting. And I think these are actually both very good, along with Upright Women Wanted, are very good like intros into non-binary fiction and sort of what non-binary authors are trying to do. And so, also, if you've read the other ones in this, please let me know. So, yeah. Thanks for hanging out, y'all.